So now it's the final installment about this day. This is part 3 to the last video, and it's the final part. So I'm going to tell about what happened when we finally made it to the park and had all the stuff, and I'm going to tell about one of my best times and experiences. If not, it might just be the best time and experience I've had getting high. So after we finally got the weed and the pipe out of sheer luck, we finally were going to smoke. And keep in mind, this was my first time smoking with someone who wasn't my cousin and in my own city. So I was pretty anxious. So we were walking to the park, and my friend didn't know what exact park we were heading to. He just thought we were going to some random ass park. And this park that I was taking us to was a good childhood park of mine. I've been there so many times as a kid. I've had so many memories there. Like this one time I fucking hit my head at this park and my skull cracked open. And when you hear someone say their skull cracked open, you think and you imagine that it literally like fucking brain gush everywhere. No, it wasn't like that. It cracked open a little bit on my forehead, and I still have the mark. And the doctor said it cracked open, and so I just started fucking bleeding a lot when this happened. I was like 8 years old. There's fucking blood everywhere. Blood was coming out. It was fucking crazy. That's another story. But I had to go to the hospital, and the way to get to the hospital was all fucking hectic. It was all crazy. That's probably not a good memory that I had to bring up there, but it's one of the more remarkable ones. But yeah, I've just been to this park as a kid, and it seemed like it was in a pretty nice area. It wasn't by any schools, and there's just houses surrounding it, and there was only two ways to get in. One of the ways was through an alleyway, and the other way was in front where it was open, but it was in the middle of a neighborhood, and there's only one street. And it's not like other parks where it's open by every fucking direction. There's multiple ways to get in. This park was almost hidden because there was only two ways to get in. And at this park, there was a big ass field, a playground, a basketball court, and two tables with benches. So I thought it would be a good idea to come here and smoke there. And I know I talked about nostalgia in my last video, but at the moment when we were heading to the park and when we were at the park, that's all I was pretty much feeling. It was all just nostalgic, just thinking that I'm about to do something my 8-year-old self would never imagine himself doing at this park, which was full of memories. Anyways, it's like a nostalgia deception because in my last video, I talked about how it was pretty nostalgic making that video because I made it on the same exact day it happened, and it has been 3 years since this day happened. And also during that day, I also felt nostalgic because I was going to smoke at this park with childhood memories, and I just ditched school to do this. And when I was 8, I would never imagine myself doing any of that, especially ditching school. But it turns out later in life, I fucking ditched school a lot. And you know what? I think it was worth it. You can retake classes, but you can't relive specific moments. But yeah, it's like a nostalgia deception. Anywho, enough of the rambling. So we were walking to the park and we finally got closer to it. And as we got closer to it, my friend realized what park we were heading to, and he stopped me and he said, "Dude, fuck that. That's the same exact park my cousin got shot at like 2 years ago." And once he said this, in my mind, I was like, what the fuck? Because this park seemed to be really peaceful. There was rarely any gangs who hanged out there, and it seemed like it was in a nice area. So then my friend began telling me how his cousin got shot at this park, and basically he told me this. He told me that his cousin was at this park chilling by himself, most likely smoking weed. And then this car pulled up, and someone gets out of the car, goes up to him, and tries to rob him at gunpoint, and tells him to give him all the stuff he had. And my friend's cousin just fucking dips out of there and just runs. And the guy gets back in the car, runs back in the car with the other people he was with, and they start shooting at him for no reason. So he ran out of the park and he went down the street, and the car managed to get near him. The car followed him basically, and they kept shooting at him. And while he was running down the street, the car was at the other end of the street because he managed to run down the street. And then they start shooting at him, or they kept shooting at him, and they still were shooting at him. And they just fucking drove off after it started too much ruckus in the neighborhood. And he made it out alive, and he didn't get caught with a bullet or anything, thankfully. And his cousin didn't even know these people. They were just some random ass people who tried to rob him, and then they started shooting at him once he retaliated. So after my friend told me this, not only was I surprised, but I got a little worried because what if something similar could happen to us? because this city that we live in, it's just a bad city in general. And we were just a couple of young teens with weed on us, and some scumbag could easily come over and take advantage, especially when we're high. And I was surprised because I never knew such events happened at this park. But then that paranoia went away because I quickly realized, hey, you know what? It was the morning time and everyone's at school. And if we had to worry about anything, it would be late in the afternoon because that's when it gets bad in our city. So I told my friend this and he just basically agreed. So then his paranoia went away quickly as well. So then we just ignored our worries because it was a new day and it was not 2 years ago when his cousin got shot at. And the only thing I was actually worried about, and this was in the beginning of the day too, but before we got the weed, I was worried about getting caught by the cops. And aside from that, me and my friend just shrugged off our paranoia and that all just went away. But I was worried about getting caught by the cops because we did school too. So we're walking to the park and we finally make it, and I already feel nostalgic when we made it to the park. So we walk through the alleyway, then we enter the park and walk through the big fields towards where these two benches and tables were, which was by the playground. So we go to this one bench and we just settle ourselves there. Now this was going to be like my fourth or fifth time smoking weed, and the first time I smoked weed I didn't get high, but I played along and I acted like I was high. But the second time I smoked, I actually got high, and it was my first legitimate time being high, and it was such the experience, but it was scary. And after that, I smoked weed again, and I didn't get high, I just inhaled and immediately let it out, kind of like the first time, and I acted like I was high, and that was all with my cousin. But in my early weed days, I was scared to smoke weed. Like, every time I was going to smoke weed, I would get really anxious and worried. It was almost like that feeling when you're about to ditch school. But yeah, smoking weed at first was pretty scary to me. And now I was going to smoke weed with a friend in my city. And I'm not gonna lie, I only planned to not really get high. Like, basically, I was just going to inhale and exhale real quickly. So I was going to fake it, basically, because I was nervous and I only got actually high once. And I fucking flipped out, and so I was nervous at this point, and I just wanted to chill at the park and get some snacks because I thought ditching school was already enough. But since we already had the weed and everything, I was just going to smoke and try not to get high, basically, and try to pull it off faking it because I was nervous. But at the same time, I was like, you know what, whatever happens happens. I was just going to try not to get stoned, basically. And so I thought I could pull this off because it was my first time smoking with my friend, and I never seen how he smokes or if he actually full on smoked weed. And we were young also, so I thought my friend wouldn't notice because I thought he didn't know shit about smoking weed, to be honest. So as we're at the bench, the time has finally come to smoke the weed. So my friend packs a bowl and he takes out the lighter and he lights the bowl. So he goes first and he hits it, and it looks like he was hitting it pretty good. So after he hit it, it was my turn. So I take the pipe, I light it up, and I take a hit. So when I take the hit, he looks at me, and then when I'm done taking the hit, I just let most of it out and, try to pretend. And he goes, dude, what the fuck are you doing? So at this point, I'm like, damn it, because I can't pull it off. So then he tells me what I'm supposed to do, and he tells me step by step that I'm supposed to inhale, hold it in, then exhale, and this fucker's demonstrating as he's taking hits. So then in my mind I was like, fuck, now I actually gotta smoke this weed. But then I was like, you know what, whatever, because like I said, whatever happens, happens. So I do what he tells me to do, and he puts the pipe to my mouth and he lights it up for me and he tells me to inhale. So I inhale, and he doesn't take away the lighter, he just keeps lighting up this whole bowl. And as this is happening, in my mind, I'm just like, fuck, I'm gonna get fucking stoned, what am I doing? And he just keeps lighting up the weed and I keep inhaling, and I'm basically taking a big ass hit from the pipe. The best way to describe my friend lighting this pipe for me is like, think about your friend making you jug a lot of water, but like the water never ends and you just don't know when it ends, and except the water is smoke and it's burning your throat. So after I take that big ass hit, I was about to exhale it all out, but my friend was like, no, hold it in, hold it in. So I kept it in for a while, and I think I kept it in for way too long, because then I just started coughing, and I finally let it out, and I just started fucking coughing and coughing, and it felt like my throat was burning. I can't stand that feeling. I was just fucking coughing like crazy, and I had to put my head down on the table, and I just kept on fucking coughing and spitting too, and my eyes were watery, and it was just crazy, and I had to put my head down on the table, and as I have my head down on the table, my friend pats me on the back, and he says, "That's how you do it." So after, I'm just trying to relax and cool off, and I tell my friend he could keep hitting it until I was ready again, and he was like, "You sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And the way my friend hit it was normal. He was getting good hits, and he could inhale and let it out at the right times where he wouldn't cough like crazy. And that was probably because his lungs were more used to it. And my friend would sometimes take big hits and end up coughing a lot, but he didn't fucking hold it in for that long like me, to the point where he had to put his head down on the table. But he was more used to smoking weed. My friend was more used to smoking weed because he began smoking weed like at age 10, and he told me that afterwards, but on this day I had no idea about that. So when my friend's smoking, he starts taking some pretty big hits, and he starts coughing a lot, and he would take like a moment to look around and just refresh before taking another big hit. And so at this point, I'm finally refreshed and I feel better, and I get my head off the table and I look around, and after a few seconds I realized I was getting high. And then my friend said, "Come on, dude, you can't just take one hit, you gotta take some more." So I'm like, "Fine." So he puts the pipe up to my mouth and he lights it, and I take a big hit, and I didn't fucking hold it in as much as last time, but it was a big hit. So I take the hit and I cough my lungs out again, and I take a moment to refresh, and then I quickly realized, fuck, I'm high. So at this point I'm fucking high, and my friend makes me take two more hits. So I do, and I'm already fucking stoned. So I take two more big hits, and I was done after that. I told my friend he could finish the rest and keep smoking if he wanted. So my friend took a bunch of big hits, and he stopped when he thought he was done, and we still had some weed left. We had about enough for two bowls. So after we smoked, we were just chilling there, and me and my friend realized how fucking stoned we are, because we just laugh at stupid shit and we're just talking about stupid shit. So it was pretty clear to the both of us that we were fucking stoned. So after a short while of us just chilling at this table, my friend tells me we should go to 7-Eleven because his mouth was pretty dry, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go," because my mouth was pretty dry too. And we didn't know how fucking high we were until we left the table. So we left the table and we began walking to 7-Eleven. So we're walking through the field, and then we walk through the alleyway, and as we're in the alley, my friend pulls out the pipe and says, "Dude, we have to smoke more." And me and him were already fucking stoned, and I'm stoned to the point where I just don't care about anything. So we stop in the alley, and he puts the pipe to my mouth and lights it, and he tells me to inhale. So I inhale, and then I keep taking a couple more hits even when I'm high, and he does this about 3 or 4 times. So this fucker is basically taking advantage of me and getting me more stoned than I already am. But it was all good with me. And when he made me take those hits, I remember laughing for no reason because I had the pipe to my face, and he just kept lighting it, and I kept inhaling and taking hits. And I just thought it was funny. I don't know. You laugh at stupid and simple shit when you're high. And he was laughing as well. And I don't know if it was because I was high or if they were normal hits, but I wasn't fucking like coughing like crazy as I thought I would. So when I'm done taking hits, he starts taking some hits, and he took as much as I did, about 3 or 4. And the hits we took in the alley weren't fucking crazy hits like in the beginning where they made us fucking cough like crazy, but they were pretty good hits that made us cough. So we were done and we were set. And so we finally continue walking to 7-Eleven, and it wasn't until 7-Eleven till me and my friend realized how way more fucking high we got and how fucking stoned we were. So we finally make it to 7-Eleven, and the walk seemed like it took forever because we were high, even though the park was pretty close to 7-Eleven. So we're at 7-Eleven, and this is when we realized how high we were. So we entered the 7-Eleven, and we were paranoid before going in, or at least I was, because I thought we were going to get caught being high, and I thought people were going to find out we ditched school and shit like that, because we looked pretty young. So me and my friend came up with a plan while we were walking to 7-Eleven, and our plan was just to act as normal as possible. And most people know acting normal when you're high off your ass in public usually doesn't go well. So we enter the 7-Eleven, and we only plan to get some chips and drinks. So we walk in and we go into the section where they have big bags of chips, and me and my friend are just deciding what to get, and we're like talking about it. We're having a fucking discussion about it, even though in the end we each got our own bag of chips. And we were grabbing each a bag of chips and knocking over shit on accident, and there's other shit on the ground that we knocked over, and we were like deciding what kind of chips to get, and it felt like it took fucking 5 minutes, and then we went to where they had the drinks, and it was easy getting drinks, and the whole fucking deciding thing what to get felt like a fucking mission. And once we're done deciding what to get, me and my friend get in line and wait till it's our turn. And there's only one dude in front of us, and he's like some redneck dude. And so we're waiting, just standing there, and it feels like a long time. And me and my friend are just staring at shit in the store, trying to act normal in line. And then I notice the cashier and the redneck dude were looking at us. And so I look, and then the redneck dude's facing me, and he says, "You guys having fun?" And get this, I stupidly immediately replied this. I said, "Wait, what? No, we're not high." And I made an exaggerated face when I said that. And then the cashier guy and the redneck dude just started laughing. I don't know why I just said this right away. It just slipped out of my mouth. But before I said that, they probably already found out we were high because they were looking at us. And it was probably because we smelled and our eyes were red. And we were just staring into shit in the store. And also, it was our turn next in line, and we weren't paying attention because we were just staring into midair, trying to act normal, and we completely forgot about being in line because of how high we were. So, trying to act normal fucking completely failed. So then after the redneck guy leaves the store, it's our turn to pay for our stuff, and paying for the shit was as difficult as getting the chips. So I give him the money because I was holding the money, and then the guy says, "This is not enough money." And I realized I only fucking gave him $2. So I was like, oh shit. Then I just give him all the money I was holding, and that was enough to pay for our shit, which was just some 2 Gatorades and 2 big bags of chips for both me and my friend. So I gave him all the money, and it was enough to cover for everything. And he just gives me the change, and it was all good. And I remember walking out of the 7-Eleven feeling paranoid that the cashier scammed us, but I checked and he didn't. I was just tripping. So we left the 7-Eleven, and that whole 7-Eleven shit felt like a fucking mission. So when we walked out of the 7-Eleven, my friend says, "Dude, how the fuck did they know we were high?" And I told him I had no fucking idea. And I didn't find out until I started thinking about it afterwards when I wasn't as high. So I remember I got really fucking paranoid at this moment because I thought the cops were going to show up or some stupid shit like that. But I was just paranoid. And I told my friend, I was like, what if one of those guys calls the cops? And my friend was basically like, no, nothing's going to happen, don't worry. And I was just feeling paranoid, but it quickly wore off. So after leaving the 7-Eleven, me and my friend just decided to settle down by this little cool hangout spot, which was right down the street of the 7-Eleven. And the place was covered in trees, and it was behind a neighborhood sign, and it was by a dried up pond, and we decided to settle there and just eat our snacks. So after a short little while of being there, my friend wants to go smoke again. And I didn't want to, but I was just going to accompany him anyways. So for some reason, we were high, we weren't fucking thinking straight, but we decided, and we ended up walking to some totally different area, which was by a small store. So we walked all the way to the back of this little store, and the walk felt like it took fucking forever. And we're just chilling there, and my friend's trying to pack the bowl, and he's having trouble with it because he's already high and because of the wind. And then he's like showing me the weed, and he was saying like, "Dude, look at this. It's some purple, bro. Look at this. It's some purple." And so after packing the bowl, he smokes it. And after he was done, we decided to go back to the spot we were at earlier because it was much nicer over there. It was more hidden and there was more shade. So we go walk all the way back to this place after that pointless walk just so he could smoke behind a store. So we go back to the spot we were at originally. And so we're finally at the spot, and we're just chilling here for a while, sitting on this tree that was bent enough for us to sit on it. And I just remember just sitting there with this empty Gatorade bottle, just thinking about life and reminiscing and shit like that. And I look over and I see my friend get up, and both of us were pretty tired at this point. So I see my friend get up without saying anything, and he just lays on the ground. And the ground is full of things like sticks and pine cones and dirt, mud and trash and pointy uncomfortable shit like that. And he's just laying there with his eyes closed, and he doesn't say anything. And I'm just looking at him like, what the fuck? And he's almost literally about to sleep / pass out, and after a good 8 or 10 seconds, he just jumps up and yells, and I can't mimic the yell that he did because I would probably look pretty stupid. But he jumps up from the ground and he yells, and he wipes all the shit that he got on himself from the ground, which was like dirt, sticks, and pine cones and shit like that. And then he says, "Dude, I can't believe it. I was just about to fucking pass out on the ground. That shit felt so comfortable. It felt like I was sleeping on clouds." And I was just fucking laughing my ass off when he said this. So after that, we're just relaxing, chilling again, and then this fucker starts doing some stupid stuff again. So there's this bent tree that I mentioned, and the bent tree was close enough on the ground that you could sit on it. And this tree had some pretty strong, thick, but bendable branches. So there's basically 2 branches sticking out from this tree, and you can get between them. So my friend decides to get in between them and starts trying to break one of the branches, not realizing the other branch that is behind his head. So he begins pushing one of the branches, and he starts pushing it fucking hard. He goes back and forth really hard, and he's trying to break the branch, and he's about to break it, and he's bending the branch pretty far. And then he wasn't paying attention, but he ends up hitting the back of his head with the other branch that was behind him, and he was moving at a pretty fucking fast pace, and with the force of the other branch that he was trying to snap coming at him, it was just all bad. He fucking hit the back of his head on the other branch, and he hits his head, and all he says is, "Ow, fuck." And he's just grabbing his head because he's hurt, and I just start fucking laughing my ass off again, and he's just like, "Oh, fuck, that hurts." But then he just starts laughing along also, which is a good thing. So then we just chill again, and he starts doing some pretty fucking funny shit. He starts peeking behind the neighborhood sign that was near us, and you could only see his eyes, and I just found it pretty fucking funny because I was still pretty high. So then after chilling for a while, he decides it's time for him to go home, and we both didn't have phones or watches, but it seemed like it was getting pretty late, and it was also a minimum day on this day, and also weed makes it feel as if time's going slow. So he decided he was going to go home, and I decided to stay there for a little bit and just wait till the high wears off a little bit more because I wasn't so sure about the time. So he tells me he's gonna go, and he tells me, "Oh, this was fucking awesome, dude." And I'm just like zoned out of it a little bit because of the weed. And after I quickly snap out because he tells me he's about to leave, and so I snap out of it. And I try to convince him to stay a little bit longer, and he says no, he needs to head home because he thinks he might be already late to be home and that he might get in trouble. And so I'm like, all right, fine. And I give him whatever I had of his, and then I ask him if he could hold on to the pipe, and he's just like, yeah, sure. And so before he leaves, I was pretty thirsty, so I asked him if he could lend me about $2, and he gives me $2, and I just thank him for that. And then he starts walking away, and then I'm just sitting there, and it's just me and my thoughts, and I'm just relaxing for what feels like 1 or 2 minutes. And I turn around, and I see this fucker peeking at me over the sign again, and I just found it fucking hilarious. So after he sees me, we just both start laughing, and then he's like, all right, peace out. So I just stay there at the spot, and I'm just chilling there, and I look around, and he was gone. He went home, and so now it was just me by myself and my thoughts again. And I was just kind of scared to go home because I thought my parents would realize that I was high because I would probably be acting strange or most likely smelled like weed. So I decided to stay there for a little bit more, and then I was like, you know what, I'm pretty thirsty. So with the $2 that he gave me, I went back to the 7-Eleven to get a drink, and I wasn't as high as I was earlier. I was getting off my high. I was riding the high, basically. So while I'm at the 7-Eleven, I asked what time it was, and it turns out it was 11 something, and our school didn't get out till like 12 something, and it was basically an hour before our school got out. And once I thought about this, I was just thinking that my friend was fucked because he didn't know what time it was, and he wanted to go home so he wouldn't get in trouble, but he went an hour earlier before school got out, so he was probably going to get in trouble if his dad realized that. And then after I got the drink, I needed to take a piss and wash my hands and try to clean myself the best I can so that I could get rid of any scent of weed. And washing my hands was probably not the best way to get rid of the scent. Well, actually, it's a pretty good way, but I know some people use Axe and other shit, perfume, cologne, whatever. But washing my hands and hopefully, trying to get the scent off my hands and try to wash my face, it was worth a try. And I didn't even know if I smelled, but I just wanted to make sure. So after stepping out of the 7-Eleven, there was this Mexican restaurant nearly next to it. And so I go in there and I ask if I could use their bathroom. And they said they don't usually let people who aren't customers use their bathrooms, but they were going to let me use it anyways. So I got lucky and I used their bathroom, and I just went in there, washed my hands, took a look in the mirror if my eyes were red and they're just a little glossy, and then I just washed my face and I left and I told them thank you. So then I decided to go down by the spot I was at and wait a little bit more till time passes by until school got out so I can go home and not risk getting caught. So I go back to the spot and I just wait there for a bit, and I had to wait nearly an hour till school got out. So I'm just chilling at that spot with no phone or watch or anything, and after a good what felt like 5 minutes, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not waiting, I'm going home. So I decided to walk home, and my plan was once I got home just to go straight to my room. So I felt pretty good about not getting caught. So I go home and I'm walking home and I finally get to my house, and I enter my house and I see my mom, and my mom just greets me, and everything is going swell because I guess I don't smell too bad, and I'm just getting off my high, so I'm able to, function normal. And then my mom realizes what time it was, and she asks me about it. I looked at the time and there was about 30 to 40 minutes left, and she noticed and she asked why I got home so early, and I just said that we got out earlier than expected. And this worked, and I think the reason this worked was because it was a minimum day and it wasn't a normal school day, and she probably just ended up forgetting about it because she didn't bring it up later. And the school didn't call about my absence either because they probably thought I was sick. But I only started getting caught in ditching and skipping classes when the school started calling home a lot. But on this day, they didn't call home, and they probably didn't seem to care because it was a minimum day and it was Friday. So then after that, I just went to my room and that was it. I was just thinking, man, that was fucking awesome. And when the weekend was over, I talked to my friend when I got back to school, and it turns out, and he told me that he got caught because he got home an hour earlier and his dad found out, just as I imagined. And he also told me that his dad found the pipe because he was hiding it under his floor, and his dad coincidentally was changing the floor, and he stumbled upon it and he found it and he just threw it away. And my friend was apologizing about the pipe, but I told him don't worry about it because I didn't really care about it because I couldn't have it at my house anyways. And for those of you that don't know, back when I smoked weed, whenever I bought weed, I never really cared about how much my friends smoked it. In other words, I wasn't really stingy about weed, unlike how nowadays, even though I don't smoke weed anymore, I see a lot of people being stingy about their weed. But with my friends, I was never stingy. Like, there's been times where I bought zips and I spent the night at my friend's house, and they'd be like, hey man, can we smoke some weed from the zip? And I'd be like, yeah, sure, no problem. And they'd be like, thanks, bro. And they'd go smoke, and I wouldn't because I wouldn't want to. But anyways, my friend got caught, but being the person he is, he didn't give a shit. He could care less. He was just telling me about how awesome what we did was and how fun it was and shit like that. So yeah, that was basically it. That was one of my best experiences I've had while high, and it was quite the experience. It was definitely nostalgic. So let me know in the comments if you have any stories like this, and I hope you enjoyed this.